Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 175. And before we start, I just have to say, Happy New Year. This is the very first episode of 2024. And I know that many of you sit waiting till the episodes drop and you listen to them on the day of release. And if you are doing that, it is Friday, the 5th of January. So it is the very first podcast of 2024. And we are joined by a really fantastic guest today who I will introduce you to in a minute. But we really hope you've had a great Christmas, a great New Year. And we're going to talk about this, I'm sure, in the podcast. But hopefully, if you were exercising before Christmas, you are back exercising and training now. You may have been training right over Christmas and New Year. You may have had a little break. Or you may even be, starting, we'll talk about this, a New Year's resolution. You may even be just getting started this week with trying to make some healthier habits, which we will talk about today with our guest, I'm sure. But before we do that, I will introduce you to the usual co-host, Mr. Peter Lant in Bath. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm all right. Happy New Year.
Have you had a good Christmas and New Year?
I was going to ask you that. Yeah, it was lush. Yeah, it was great. Got everything I wanted. All of that. Well, actually, I do. I know. I got a 13 by 13 Rubik cube.
Oh, okay.
So I'm well happy with that. So,
and have you solved it?
Of course, I have. I will have done. Yes, I want to get it in under an hour. Under an hour.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
My 11 by 11 takes me about 42 minutes or something. So 13 by 13, you can add that up. But yeah, we'll see.
Oh, well, that'll be good for you. That'll be good for concentration and for mind work, won't it?
Yeah, totally. And our guest today is our first foot into the new year. Is that still a thing? First person through the door in the house and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, okay. No, I've never
heard
that in my life. No.
Yeah. Oh no, it was that used to be a thing when we were kids. We used to go out and stand at the front door, and then New Year would come in, and then my dad would let us back in again.
And you would be the first foot through the year,
yeah.
Okay, or through the door in the new year.
Yeah, it's a thing, isn't it?
Brilliant. Well, we are joined today by Alison Young. Ali, are you in London at the moment?
Yes, I am. Yeah,
he is. Fantastic. So, Ali, I've known for a number of years, actually, because we host at Unique Results in Chelmsford the Tactical Strength Challenge twice a year. And Ali has been one of the kind of the mainstays, the regular people, person or people who travel out of London, every 6 months and does the Tactical Strength Challenge with us. We'll talk about it in the podcast, I'm sure, but this last one in October 2023, she actually won the open division, came first place globally in the Tactical Strength Challenge, which is absolutely incredible. So I've known Ali through the Tactical Strength Challenge. She's also involved through Strong First. She is a very strong lady indeed, does lots of stuff in terms of HYROX and powerlifting and all, and we're going to talk about all of that with her, I'm sure. So how are you doing today, Ali?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yes, I said in South London. I think same as Peter, but slightly different bit of South London.
Oh, same as Paul. Yeah, Paul is
yeah,
usually in where's Paul? He's Putney, isn't he?
Yes, Putney.
Yeah,
Putney. Yeah, I'm good. I was reflecting on that, sort of how I know you, and I think it's, as you say, it's one when you hosted Tactical Strength Challenge after the pandemic, I just kind of turned up, and I've been kind of just turning up ever since.
Was that the first one you did? Would it have been like 2020 or something like that? Because there was one we did that was quite small, that was just maybe like 5 or 6 people, I think, which was...
No, I think the one I turned up to was, oh God, that was back in the proper pandemic days, because I know we were back and forth via email, trying to work out whether you could even host it,
Mm.
whether you'd have to host it outside, whether you'd be doing kettlebell snatches under a gazebo.
They were the days, weren't they? They were the days, yeah.
When working out what the rules were, that was week by week.
Yeah, we didn't really know. Yeah, but I know at one point I bought it was ridiculous. I mean, I'll say it was ridiculous because the local council gave me a grant to buy this outdoor gazebo to basically put in the car park outside the gym so we could still operate. But you were basically just stood in a tent outside in the car park while I'm paying rent and everything else on this massive premises that's just behind me. It was
with garage doors on it that you can open up and make it like it's
you
outside anyway.
Yeah, which was
it's quite well air conditioned, that building. It's quite it's nice.
It was mad, dearie me. Anyway,
Anyway.
maybe to start off with, I mean, because I mean we've never actually had this conversation. I mean, we've met obviously a number of times and we've kind of talked about training and all the rest of it, but we've never kind of said, and we've spoke about various elements of what you do, I suppose, but not really kind of how you got into training in the first place, or what your kind of exercise training kind of history has been, and career and what you've done and what you're now moving into now. So I mean, there's lots there to talk about, but do you want to kind of just sort of start, and maybe we'll start wherever you want, and kind of we'll have a bit of a chat, and we can jump in as and when on the journey.
So actually this starts, I mean, the first person I have to thank for this is my mum. And because I had a very active childhood, and I was taken along to all sorts of things, tap and ballet. I did some competitive swimming when I was just before puberty. So I had to give that up because I went through quite a sort of a big growth spurt, and my muscles weren't keeping up with my bones, basically. I did, this is when I used to live in Kent in Gillingham. So I was a member of the GWAC, which is Gillingham Water Activity Centre, or as we called it, Get Wet and Cold. I did canoeing, I did sailing, so little dinghy sailings, so like the kind of one person ones where you're kind of hanging your ass outside of the boat. I started playing rugby. I mean, even the school I went to, I think I was really lucky looking back. I was exposed to a lot of different activities and opportunities, and the school we did trampolining. They shoved us off to the local leisure centre quite regularly, so we all went for a swim, or there was a tiny gym in the leisure centre.
So this is really good, because I know when we have Dan John on, he always talks about when children, and I was talking to someone else about this the other day, when kids are young and in school age, that really you just want to expose them to as much and as many different activities and sports and modes of training and exercising as you can, and not specialize at a young age. It's almost like that play time, isn't it, of just do everything and just get exposed to as much as possible, and then you'll kind of find your interest or find your niche or find your strong points kind of a bit later on, but don't specialize too young, really just kind of try everything. So that sounds like what you were doing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my school even did, in a sort of limited version, a bunch of track and this is a school in Kent in England. You had track and field events, so I remember having a go at a javelin. And so with that kind of basis, I went off to university. I went to Bath to study engineering, chemical engineering, and continued playing rugby there, and then dropped out of that degree because I got into computers there. And it's interesting because this is one of the interesting contrasts between fitness professional and IT professional. The number of IT qualifications I've held in my life is one for about a year, and then it expired, and it didn't matter. I have no degrees, I have no professional training. IT, you kind of pick up as you go along. It's more of a craft than a profession. And so it's been interesting with fitness. Now, obviously, getting my level 2, level 3, getting official qualifications like the Strong First qualifications. Anyway, back to university. I get into computing. So I jump around all over the place. I probably have ADHD. I haven't ever sought a diagnosis, but a few of my friends have been diagnosed recently, and I've sort of looked at them and gone, that's why we're friends. Right. Went to university. Obviously, at university, I was playing rugby, and then I think I did what a lot of people do in their sort of 20s, in that, again, you don't realize at university how much everything's on tap. You have this amazing range of opportunities of clubs, societies, and then you leave, and it's like, oh, you just kind of stop. If you don't then actively, and when you're in your 20s, obviously you're partying, you start a new career, you don't think about it. And so all those activities you were previously doing, you well, in my case, I just stopped for a bit. I still did it probably sounds dreadful to say it, but I think clubbing was my cardio.
Okay.
That's not terrible to say. That's yep.
That's what Pete used to hang around in the mosh pits, didn't you, Pete? You were doing all the heavy rock stuff, the heavy metal stuff, yeah.
Or right up at the front at concerts and just come back with like a line across there and an A.
Yeah. And I got to like 20s, early 30s, and I was the effects of a 40+ hour week desk job were catching up with me. And so I joined a gym and got a personal trainer, and we did, and it's funny, I've actually looked back at some of the programming we were doing because I got emails from it, and it was incredibly generic. It was kind of, I mean, this would have been late noughties, early 2010s, and it was, I think I'm happy to, I think my progress through fitness is what a lot of women have gone through, that they've gone from, the 5 kilo dumbbells to something more. And so I was with her for a bit, and then I think I changed jobs, and so I changed gyms.
Can I just ask, Ali, what was it? Yeah. So you've been working probably for a decade, say, through your 20s, and you hit around the 30 mark, and you kind of said that this sort of 40+ hour a week, sat down behind a desk, office job was starting to catch up with you, and you made the decision to, like I say, to join a gym, to get a personal trainer. What was it? Was there something that happened? Because I'm always looking when we talk to people to find what the catalyst was. What was the tipping point? Was there something that happened that you thought, I need to change? Or was it just a general feeling that, kind of what sort of tipped you to do that, to go from doing nothing to think, I'm going to join a gym? What was there something?
There was something, and it's odd for me to say this now because it's one of the last things I train for these days, but I was getting the bingo wings. I felt like I was building up fat in places I didn't want fat. And on top of that, I knew it wasn't healthy to be that inactive, and I don't think there was I can't point to a moment where I couldn't run for the bus or anything like that, but I was just aware this is not good. But yeah, I know what you mean. There wasn't one thing, one kind of light bulb moment. It was just kind of a dissatisfaction. So,
yeah, that's good, because I suppose for some people, because I was just thinking about like Anthony Flores, Peter, who we had on a few weeks ago. Some people have this almost like this epiphany. They don't realize. I mean, he for him it was walking up a flight of stairs, wasn't it, and then nearly feeling dead at the top of it. And he was only 20, and he was hugely overweight. And for him it was like, right, I've got to change, But for probably like what you're describing is good, because it's probably actually what most people experience. It's probably not this massive, dramatic, sort of life-changing epiphany. It's probably just that general feeling of dissatisfaction and not being really happy with how things are going and wanting to change, I suppose.
Yeah. And in a way, it's a good thing, because it meant that when I did get in the gym, I wasn't having to start from firstly, I'm telling you now, doing the course, I presume at some point I must have done a PAR-Q or done some kind of, tick the box somewhere. And of course, when I went in, it would have been, do you have any health? Nope. Everything's fine. Off we go. Rather than having to go, well, actually, my blood pressure's really high, or I'm pre-diabetic, or I've got all these situations. And while these situations shouldn't then stop someone from seeking out gym membership, getting on that health journey, it does just mean you've got a few more sort of steps to go through. So I turn up at the gym at 30, about ready to go, do the generic, what women were programmed for in those days, for a few years. And then I changed gyms yet again. There's also a slight pattern of I changed jobs, and my gym sort of attendance would come and go. It was, I was very sporadic. And then I changed jobs and joined a gym called Gymbox, which is a gym I'm currently a member of. And along with that, I got another new PT. I was going through PTs at this rate, and that's Owen. And Owen was the first person to get me doing bench and look at my numbers. And I obviously I had no clue. If you don't know about powerlifting, you don't know about these things, you don't know what a good number is. And so I think I ended up with 40 on the bar pretty much straight off. And he was going, this is quite good. I was like, really?
Yeah.
You have potential. I was like, okay. Do you want to do a competition? What? And so happily being in London, now where was it? I think it's closed now. There's a gym called Built Differently, and they were hosting novice competitions. And I think it's now happening a lot more around the country, that people or gyms are hosting powerlifting competitions for people who haven't yet bought the singlet, because you have to wear a fetching singlet for those who don't powerlift. It's not quite a uniform, but there's a very set amount of things you're allowed to wear or not wear, especially if you're equipped or not equipped. That just means different set of things. And they hosted, and I went along and had a go, having done a fair bit of training. Obviously got my squat and my deadlift and my bench up, and I really liked it. And if nothing else, the atmosphere was amazing. And this is why one of the things I say, this is why I do HYROX, this is why I do Tactical Strength Challenge. Competitions are incredibly supportive environments. It's very rare, and I suspect this is probably true up to really high level. And even at high level, you see competitors kind of being supportive of each other. Everyone wants everyone to do well. Obviously, you want to win, but you want to beat whoever you win against. You want to beat them on their best day, and not beat them because you were lucky. And so that's how I got into powerlifting.
How did you? Can I ask? How long had you been training? Kind of like you say, for people for some of the listeners. So powerlifting is, like you say, bench, squat, deadlift, three disciplines. How long had you been more focusing on that with Owen? I think you said the trainer, before you entered this first competition. Do you think?
That's a good question. It wasn't that long. I think we actually managed to do a competition within about 6 months of me training with him.
And how did you get on in that competition? I know it's not the most important thing in the world, but how did you actually perform in that competition? And how did you get on from a competitive point of view?
I honestly can't remember. I'd have to look
that's
it
okay.
Up. That's actually a really funny point. It's obviously, having said I'm a very competitive person, if you ask me, where did you place? It's kind of, yes, I definitely placed somewhere. I do remember, and this is one of those things. This is why you shouldn't, be too worried about these things. My first competition, my first squat. Now, powerlifting, there are rules about how you squat. You don't just wander up to the bar, get the bar off your back, and off you go. You unrack the bar from the rack. You take a step back, and then when you are still and ready, you get the command to squat. You squat to parallel below, stand back up, and then you wait for the command to rack the bar, because you have to prove you've got the bar under control. You're not kind of all over the place, just barely holding on to the bar. I'd been training that again and again and again in practice, and I forgot on my first lift, and there was a video of me, and you just see my face. I step forward to re-rack the bar, and I just go, oh, there's this look of horror.
Okay. So that first
So
lift then was a
fail.
was a no lift, yeah, because you didn't wait for the rack command.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
The world did not end.
No.
I had a second lift, and I got that one. That was absolutely fine, and the third lift was fine.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
so, whilst this is why, obviously, it's not ideal, but that's the worst that happened, really.
Yeah. So what's great is that you, like you say, you don't even, remember where you placed, but you obviously the experience of going to that competition obviously must have sort of lit a fire in you, or you remember that experience very fondly of, like you say, the support and actually turning up and training for something and then turning up and doing it, and that obviously kind of like set something in motion in you.
Yeah. No, it's something that I have found incredibly powerful for me in terms of, and this kind of maps back to, I guess, talking about the resolutions and goal setting this time of year. Competitions happen. They are in the diary. They can't be changed. You can't phone them up and say, "Oh, actually, my training's been terrible this month. Could we just kind of, could we just put it back by a fortnight?" Oh, it's going to happen. You're ready or you're not. Although I said, I can't remember where I got this from. You can't feel ready, but you can be prepared.
Yeah,
So,
I like that. Oh, I'm gonna write that down.
That's got me. That's set me. Yep, that's set my brain
What's
going.
that? You can't.
Yeah.
You
can't feel ready.
Yeah.
But you can be prepared.
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's what you've just said there is great. It reminds me of the conversation we had with Tim Anderson and Dan John, that like Dan was talking about what does it look like in 20 years, and when we've said that a lot on the podcast. We haven't actually said it for ages. And that whole thing of like having a competition, it means you have to show up, right? And it's what he was talking about having like everyone says, like, have your why and all that, and then he was just talking about his grandkids and being 80 years old, and he doesn't want his daughters to die in their 50s because like everyone in his family, all the women die in their 50s, that sort of stuff. And it's like you've got to show up for that, because if you don't, it doesn't happen. And that was like that was a huge thing. So it's very similar, and then you can extrapolate that out to like not just 6 months time, but like 20 years time. You can say, I want to be, I don't know, if you're in your 20s, you can be like, well, I want to be a masters lifter in my 50s and win that, or you can say you want to win it, and then it's like, right, we'll start now. And like
when we spoke to Sean Cairns recently as well, didn't he was very big on having a athletic or competitive outlet for your training, so you're not just training in the gym for the sake of training, you're training with a purpose, you're training for something, and about how, again, similar to what we just said, how that helps keep you on track, whether that be training for a certification or training for a sport or training for a competition or training for a powerlifting meet or training for the tactical strength challenge or whatever it is, just training for something. And like you say, when that date is in the diary, it certainly focuses the mind, doesn't it? And focuses the efforts, I think. Yeah. Brilliant. So what went on from there then? The first powerlifting competition, what was next?
So I kept doing powerlifting. I did a few more meets after that. And then in terms of timeline, that actually brings us up to what else did I do? Just before the pandemic, I did turf games once, which was interesting.
What's that? I don't know about turf games.
So turf games is in the same camp as things like HYROX. It's kind of, don't call it CrossFit. It's function. It's a new. I can't call it CrossFit, but it's functional fitness. So it's, again, competitions. Turf games tends to be entirely team based. So you have teams of 5 or 6 people. I think it's 6 these days. HYROX is, we'll probably get onto HYROX in a moment, but HYROX is either individual or pairs, or they've got a relay option now. And it's normally things like you've got 10 minutes to set a maximum number of burpees over a box while someone has to hold a dumbbell while someone does a thing and there's a boat. It's lots of it's all that functional fitness skill based stuff. And again, it's something that people people can book and prepare for and build up to. And turf games especially, I've been to a couple of times as a spectator, and it's a really fun day out. It's really fun. They have they just lay it out nicely, so you can actually just basically spend the day wandering around watching people do sport. So I did that, and that brings us up to the pandemic. And
can I ask, Ali? I know I'm interrupting because I've just got another question for you. Did you fairly early on, when you started going to the gym and when you were young and you had this, you were exposed to all these different sports and activities, did you know from a young age that you had a kind of a leaning towards strength or being strong? I mean, were you stronger than most other people when you were doing certain things? Did you? Because you know you're a strong lady, and I know you've trained very hard to become a strong. But was it kind of? Did you have a natural leaning towards being strong? Did you develop strength? You know, kind of naturally and feel strong. You know, from an early age.
I think yes, and I didn't notice or didn't realize. And I think that's one of the sort of the only thing I look back on with a certain amount of regret, although I'm not sure what I would have done at the time about it, is I think I had the capacity to be a lot stronger, a lot younger, but I just wasn't doing the right type of training. And in a way, I didn't know. I think a lot of people just didn't know. It was kind of commonly accepted. Of course, women don't get that strong. And it wasn't even that I didn't want to get bulky. I wasn't, that had never crossed my mind. I just didn't push myself, or wasn't being pushed, or wasn't putting myself in a situation that would really be saying, okay, now I'm actually going to lift up to my maxes. So it's only been relatively recently, but I mean, I played rugby on second row, and you have to be quite strong to be to be a forward. So I probably always was strong. I just didn't really notice it. And didn't really think, oh, this is something I can really develop and build on.
Okay.
So,
yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. Sorry. So take me up to the top. Keep jumping.
But no, it's actually it's a really good point, because it's funny looking back on looking at my journey. It's like it goes from almost normal strength training, and that kind of jump is, and I'm actually really pleased, especially with organisations like Strong First. It's great to see lots of women in, and in my gym, I'm seeing women in their 20s lifting amazing weights. They're doing really serious training, and it's I think my generation hopefully will be the last one that has to learn it late. That we're going to see generations of women coming through who are kind of like the girl version of the teenage boys who just spent their teenage years in the gym getting strong.
Yeah. I think I don't know how old you are, and I'm not going to ask you, but I assume you're like similar to me and James, possibly a bit younger. But yeah, when you say the generation, I think I think there was a lot of step aerobics and stuff like that was all still like even 20 years ago, wasn't it? It was like 20, 30 years ago, it was step aerobics and all of those sorts of aerobatics, my dad used to call it. My mum used to go to aerobatics. But like those sorts of things, and like you say now, it's not, and it's in my head, but then my world is in strength and stuff now, so it's like I don't get to see necessarily what's going on that much outside of that, because it creates an echo chamber, doesn't it? But the whole thing about women becoming bulky because the lift is disappearing, I think. So I like that you've said that. That is great, because it's good to hear as well. And also the whole thing about trying to get it into schools and stuff like that, so you can nurture. So you'd have been picked up and be nurtured, possibly, if you wanted to be, obviously, of like, you've got some talent here, so let's develop it and see where it goes, see what happens, see what you think, and if you want to do something with it, you can, and if not, it's up to you, but at least you'll get the opportunity. So that's amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So anyway,
Yeah, so sorry,
the
pandemic. There you go.
And yeah, pandemic happened. I was one of the, and having had a great experience training, I was one of those people who bought kit, and somewhat paradoxically, I decided against buying a barbell and a squat rack and plates, partly for space. I don't have enough space. It was like, do you want? You know, it's one of those cases of I don't know where I would put it. I would have needed a lot of plates, and I I was actually getting into well, I was getting into Olympic lifting as well, trying that. And I just thought, if I get this, if I'm on my own, I will do something silly and drop a barbell on me. This seems like a bad idea.
Yeah.
Right. So instead of bars, what we're getting instead? And again, go back to gym box. There's a guy at my gym who's quite into his kettlebells, and he teaches kettlebell classes. And at this point, I should shout out Firaz Iskandanari for getting me into kettlebells. And if that name sounds familiar to people, the reason he's into kettlebells is he's Strong First SFG1, SFG2 certified. And so I bought.
He was in my team actually when I recertified, and I think that was with Sean Cairns and things. So I was on a course with for us. Yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah, really great guy.
And so I bought some kettlebells and Owen and I were training via Zoom, and I think let's get the sequence right. Owen suggested I do a kettlebell workshop, and because a friend of his was perhaps doing it, and I said, yeah, sure. I tend to say yes to things a lot, and I said, oh yes, it's in November. I was like, I thought, where is it? It's in up in the Midlands. Yeah, sure. What is it? I probably should have asked what is it first, but I said yes, and then asked what it was, which is not the worst idea in the world. And he said, oh yeah, it's the Strong First SFG1. And I said, oh, yeah, how bad can it be? As in, how bad can I be? Because my thought at that point was, well, I can swing a kettlebell, I think. And I then looked around and found there was someone offering kind of kettlebell kind of I don't know how she was describing them. It was not quite workshops. It was basically kettlebell learning sessions, a couple of hours via Zoom, because everything was still via Zoom at that point, to teach the swing and the snatch. And I think she did Turkish get up as well. And I keep saying she, because that was Claire. That was Claire Booth. And so, and that's how I got into Strong First. And so I turn up for the weekend and it's funny because I think this is one of those areas where my strength was a help and a hindrance, in that for me, a 16, because women at SFG1 level only do a 16 kilo kettlebell. I can do a lot with a 16 kilo kettlebell badly.
Yeah, you've got the strength to kind of to get through without perfect technique, because you're strong, and 16 kilos for you. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, one of the points that Strong First makes is, and I remember Claire demonstrating this by, I think she was using an 8 kilo kettlebell for something, and proving that she didn't need it to be heavier to show good technique. She could do an 8, and so it's not an excuse, but it was interesting turning up. And actually at that point I turned up, and it was kind of, especially when we were doing the pressing, it was kind of yeah, I'm a bit strong, aren't I? Okay, fine. But that was really interesting turning up, and I was quite nervous on the first day. And I think the first person, one of the people, because this was the pandemic one where we weren't doing it in teams, and so we were all running around with the antibacterial spray, and everyone had to be on their own little mat, but we made it work.
Was this the one which Fabio taught online, via Zoom?
Yes, okay, Fabio couldn't make it, but he taught it online.
Yeah,
and it was still for me an amazing experience. The amount I learned in that weekend, and mostly what I learned is there was a lot to learn. And it was the first time I was really kind of exposed to systems of strength, to kind of strength is a very technical thing. Strength is a skill. Yeah, it's what one of the Strong First kind of values. Strength is a skill, and I really, I kind of felt like I found my home. I mean, coming from a tech background, coming from a world of systems and a world of wanting to understand the why of everything, and wanting to understand on a very technical detail why we do something, was kind of, it just was perfect for me. So I got through that. I got through the certification. I still remember my snatch test, which is you have to do 100 snatches in 5 minutes. And I just remember looking at the clock with 10 seconds to go, and I had like 10 snatches left, and I just thought, I'm never doing this twice. I'll get through the snatch test, and I'll never do a snatch test again. Hold that thought. Because I'd got through it, and then I think a few days later I saw an advert for, and this again because we're still in a pandemic, the Tactical Strength Challenge was going online. And so it was the first time I'd done it, because normally they only give this option to serving military personnel. Is they said, look, this year we're just gonna wing it. We're gonna hope for the best. Send in your videos, and we'll try and run a virtual one. And so I looked at it. So Tactical Strength Challenge is a again competition. It's basically, I think it's fun, and whilst it's no longer run under Strong First umbrella, it represents Strong First, because your barbell deadlift is your SFL qualification. Your pull-ups are your SFB qualification, SF body weight, and your snatch test, basically, again, having said I'll never do one again, I'm now doing one on a regular basis. Your snatch test is obviously SFG. And so I did my videos. Again, I placed not very high. I think I got 4 pull-ups. No, that's the one I can remember. I got 4 pull-ups. I was very proud of my 4 pull-ups. And yeah, but I signed up because it meant I had something to train towards. And I think at the time I had 1 pull-up. And so it was one of those cases of, right, well, if I put this in the diary, I have to train for it. I already had, the deadlift was gonna be fine. Snatches, funny enough, snatches I actually did really badly at. And one of the things I kind of looked at afterwards is I'd done SFG 1 and then just stopped doing snatches for a bit. And this is funny about, we were talking earlier about big changes and talk about New Year's resolutions and so on. And it's really easy to do something and achieve something and then not maintain it. And that's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn in the last few years, strength training, because I'm actually doing quite a lot. Working out how much to do to maintain the things I want to maintain, work on things I want to work on, and pick my battles. I think that's been one of the biggest things that changed for me in the last few years. So that got me to Strong First. And then HYROX is the other thing I do regularly. Now, it's a bit of a contrast, because I think Strong First, Tactical Strength Challenge, powerlifting are the things I'm good at. HYROX are all the things I'm terrible at. I do it anyway. So to explain HYROX is, yes, another functional fitness competition. It's been running for the last few years now. It started in Germany. And it's an arena event where the clock starts, you run a kilometre, you do a kilometre on a ski erg, you run another kilometre, you push a sled, you run a kilometre, you pull a sled, so it's ski erg, sled push, sled pull, there's burpees, there's basically 8 stations.
It's like farmers walks.
Farmers walks.
Yeah. Wall balls and stuff.
Wall balls, the last one. And I think it's really interesting. Well, I find it interesting because until relatively recently, I was incredibly strong, but the moment you put me under fatigue, I'm not. So one of the things I've become more interested in the last few years is understanding, and I'm sure a lot of your guests, this is where strong first strength endurance comes in. A lot of your guests have been talking about various aspects of conditioning work and endurance work, and that area of fitness is vast and complicated. And HYROX was the first time I realized you can't just get strong. There's different versions of strong. There's different flavors of strong. There's different modalities. There's different understanding energy systems, understanding what's happening when your heart rate's at 150 BPM and all of a sudden that 120 barbell feels like it's 200.
It's interesting because last week when we had Dan and Tim on, we talked a lot about work capacity. Not last week, 2 weeks ago. We talked about like work capacity, and it's good because I've got a number of people at the moment training at Unique Results who are doing HYROX for the first time in 2024. So it's great, and I was showing some of them just earlier today. Your Instagram, you did one recently where there was a selection of photos of you doing it, and that's the thing, because you're running like 8 kilometers, aren't you?
Yeah.
Over the course of the things, you're running 8 kilometers with like you say, a sort of more of a strength based exercise in between. And there's a lady at the gym called Laura, who's a very, very good runner. And I think we had someone, or I saw someone, might have been Mark Lewis or someone who does very well in the HYROXs. And they say, I can't remember who it was, but they sort of say that actually it's a run. If you're going to do well in it, it's a runner's event. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because the running is where you're going to knock off the most time and you're going to save the most time. And whereas if you're very good at the strength events, but you've got 8 kilometers to run, you lose a lot of time on the run. So the people who do very well, in terms of placing and you're better off spending your time training the running to get that down, especially if you're already strong like you are. So yeah.
It's running and self-awareness. Well, my first HYROX I actually did with Owen, my PT, and I'd read a bit up on it, and I had a heart rate monitor, and I sort of knew where my threshold, threshold, the point on which you're now just building up lactic acid, and you're kind of the clock's counting down on you, basically having to stand for a bit, going, why did I sign up for this? And I knew this. I knew to sort of keep below the red, that happening. Owen didn't. He went out like a like a rocket out of, and halfway round, I saw him standing going, just having to recover. And so some of HYROX, this is what I find interesting about it, and I think possibly HYROX is strong first and HYROX are equally responsible for me wanting to get into professional fitness, in that they're both amazing. Actually, 2 things in common: amazing community, really smart people, really people who want to understand systems, people who want to understand and not just bash themselves in the gym, people who actually want to get better, but in a really like
a structured way.
Structured way.
Yeah.
And understanding what makes you good at strength and what makes you good at strength challenge, what makes you good at HYROX, requires a lot of technical knowledge, and really got me into I say understanding energy systems, understanding then just initially for myself. A very specific example, which funny enough I think I now have an answer to this question. So in HYROX, you have something like 150 kilo sled you need to push. If I want to be able to push that sled at all, that's strength. But if I want to be able to push that sled, say 25 meters in a minute. How do I train that? Because what we're talking, so do you take a 50 kilo sled? Do you take the sled weight you can do in a minute, train that, and increase the weight until you can do whatever weight in a minute? Or do you take a 150 kilo sled and try and get faster? So do you work from a position of strength and try and build speed? Or do you work from a position of speed and try and build strength? And the answer, from my very, very limited experience of learning about stuff, is yes.
This
One
is
of
really
those.
interesting.
Yeah.
This reminds me of a conversation we had last week, which I'll give away. It was yesterday. That's why it's so fresh in my mind. with Mark Tonner, who has done a 24-hour deadlift challenge.
Survive to tell the tale, we hope.
For suicide prevention. And he's lifting as many kilos in a 24-hour period as he can through the deadlift. So the first time he tried to do it, I mean, he's a disabled veteran strongman, and the first time he did it, he thought, I mean, he's a strong guy. When I tell you what he did, he said, I'm just going to lift 200 kilos as many times as I can in 24 hours. And he started off lifting 200 kilos for 5 reps every 7 minutes. And he did that for the first 3 hours. So that tells you how strong he is to just keep repping 200 kilos. And then he ended up reducing as he was getting tired. So in the end, he was lifting 60 kilos on the bar, but he said it felt like 200 kilos, you know, by the end of 24 hours, as you can imagine. So then he was saying, well, this time I'm going to lift 100 kilos, but I'm going to lift it more times. You know, I'm going to be more structured. So this is really, so it's very, very similar, the kind of way that you're thinking about the HYROX and the, you know, that kind of the paradox of strength and endurance and speed. Well, the difference with HYROX, you're also bringing in speed as well. So I'm sorry, you want to say something.
The thing with all that as well is, depending on your natural, because some people will be naturally strong and some people will be naturally fast. So there'll be a band. So, you know, you'll work on one and work on the other. Like you said, which one do you work on? Well, you work on both. And there'll be a band where like a stronger person can maybe use a heavier weight relative and work, and so they need to work on the speed more, and the speed person will need to work on the relative weight more and get that up. And the sweet spot will not converge for both of them. It'll actually be one side or the other, won't it? And it's like what Paul McElroy says all the time as well. You know, your any rep max goes up, your every rep max goes up. And so for speed work, for running and that with the Maffetone stuff and everything, your distance goes up, doesn't it? But your heart rate stays the same. And then with strength, your I don't know, like how many times you can like sled, well, how far you can sled push, how long it takes you to push 150 kilos, it'll come down as well. But you don't have to push 150 kilos to know that. You can just get faster at pushing 100, say, and then that's gone up. So then the 150 goes up as well. So it's kind of like, it's the same as the Mark Tonner stuff, isn't it? It all fits together really nicely.
Because I've thought about it a lot. I've thought about it a lot since we spoke to him. And I thought, I wonder if I could lift 50 kilos, but lift it 4 times as many times, you know what I mean, as his 200. And because I'd probably be better off, I've got quite a good endurance base. So I'd probably be better off going lighter and doing more rather than trying to go. Anyway, Ali, sorry, you've really hit something there. Okay. So yes, the answer was yes, you do both.
Yeah. And so that to finish introducing myself in a way, just realizing we've done really well. This is kind of when I then started thinking, well, do I want to, I did, because when I did strong first qualifications, I initially did it as as an athlete, as someone who just wanted to learn for themselves, have the experience for themselves. But it is a teaching qualification. It is a qualification where you do learn to, to coach other people, and you get that experience. And I was noticing more and more in the gym when we came back from the pandemic, that I was looking at people. I mean, and sometimes, having that formal qualification is a blessing and a curse, because you walk into most gyms and you go, they're doing, okay, that's a kettlebell swing. Oh, bless.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not going to say anything. But, I was thinking, well, okay, could I, okay, if you see, I was seeing people thinking, okay, what, if I could change one thing, what would I change? Like, but I'm even thinking about this, hang on. And it put a sort of, a seed of thought about, well, do I want to do this? Do I want to actually give this a go as a profession? And I thought, well, whilst what I tried to do, and this goes back to, this is what I generally say to people. This is, the entire tech industry has learned in the last 20 years is making big bang changes is a terrible idea. You get things like Heathrow Terminal 5 problems. You're supposed to make small incremental changes. You're supposed to sort of, so I thought I'll make a small incremental change. I'll try and get a gym instructor qualification, do it part-time whilst working full-time in a very stressful job that I was enjoying less and less because my heart wasn't in it. I was becoming one of those people. I should be less scathing of the 18-year-olds who go into professional fitness because all they want to do is live in the gym. Because part of me is going into professional fitness because I just want to live in the gym. So that was where my heart was. My passion was in fitness, and I tried to get qualified, like literally the cheapest online course I could do, and just didn't get to it. It wasn't happening. And so I made a decision last year to do the big bang change, and I quit my job. And so for the last few months this year, actually since May this year, I've been working my way through level 2 gym instructor, level 3 fitness, level 3 personal trainer, and I'm going to be 100% a fitness instructor and personal trainer in 2024.
That's fantastic. And you've already got, like you say, you've got the Strong First SFG one. You've got the, did you do SFG 2 as well? I can't remember.
Not yet.
Not yet. And you did SFL though as well?
SFL, yes.
Yeah, which is the barbell certification.
Yeah.
And you'll be level 2, level 3. And I think really all the experience you've got, with the powerlifting and the HYROX and the TSC and everything, and the turf games you mentioned as well. And also I'm aware we've been going for nearly an hour, but there's so much I've got written down. I've got notes and stuff. But I Am Maiden as well. You did that, which we've
yeah.
So we spoke about Iron Maiden before. Well, we spoke about Beast Tamer quite a lot because we had Sean Cairns on. But do you just want to quickly say what the Iron Maiden is, and then maybe just tell us when when that came in, when you did that?
Yes. So Iron Maiden is a Strong First challenge test. You have to, so women, you have to be able to press a 24-kilo kettlebell, one side. You have to be able to do a pistol squat with 24-kilo kettlebell, one side of preference. And you have to do a weighted pull-up, tactical pull-up, which means without, it's a thumbless grip, with a 24-kilo kettlebell attached to you once. And I've had the press for years. I didn't even think, again, I didn't know what I was comparing myself to. So the fact that I could press a 24-kilo kettlebell was kind of, yeah, I can do that. That's nice. And so I thought, well, I've got one. Pistol squats. Pistol squat. I've had relationships that be less high maintenance than pistol squats. God. If I work on them, I've got them.
I can fully empathize with that, because I've been doing pistol squats 3 days a week for like 3.5 years.
Yeah.
Lots of them. Lots and lots of them. And
yeah.
My God, at the minute, they're rubbish.
Yeah.
How can they be rubbish after that long? But they've been good, and then like at the minute I'm struggling with them. But anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So I knew that I could get it if I needed it. And funny enough, and it's interesting, Peter, because I've seen some of your videos. I'm probably one of the few people who prefers to have the kettlebell racked in one arm than goblet squat racked.
Which is way harder, by the way.
I find easier. I think because I've got terrible balance, so I have one arm holding the kettlebell and the other arm's waving around, trying to make myself not fall over. And so it became okay. So can I get the pull up? And I tested it first. I signed up to SFL, which was a couple of years ago now, and that was the lead instructor was Fabio Zonin, and I remember I did I did a press in front of Fabio, and his look was mostly going, "You can do more than that, can't you?" It's like, yes, I can press more. I can probably press more than that. That was not difficult. It's fine. And yes, and it was interesting. Again, thinking about systems, and I was because you can test them in any order, and it's one of the things of, do you test your hardest one first? Do you test your easiest one first to build up your confidence and shake off the the nerves and the adrenaline? What do you do? Because it's all very much your own choice. So I think what I've ended up doing was press, then pistol squat, then leave the pull up to last. And you get 2 goes at each of them. I didn't need 2 for the first 2, but the pull up, funny enough, I actually had COVID a few months before, and so it was one of those things of my training. It was just bad luck. Sometimes it's bad luck, and so I got close. I got really close
on the first attempt of the pull up.
On the first attempt,
yeah,
and then on the second one, I got about the same, and didn't quite get it. And Fabio had a chat with me afterwards, and he said, "Well, one of the things I had is you have the kettlebell on a dip belt around your waist, and what I'd had is the kettlebell on kind of just imagine a Christmas decoration level of length, kind of quite swinging." And he said, next time you're testing this, put the kettlebell up as high as you possibly can, kind of have
your center of gravity, really tight to you,
get very friendly with the kettlebell.
Yeah,
and I tried it back in the gym, and it was okay. And so I had an opportunity to test it because this you can only officially test it at a Strong First event. And so I had a Strong First event in Paris. It was actually SFB, so I've done SFB, but I didn't get qualified because I couldn't get my one-armed push up at the time. And this was the year I was also kind of burning out from my job. I took on too much that year, and I just about got it.
So who did you test with in Paris? Who was the master instructor there?
Pavel Makic.
Ah, okay, yeah. So you did it all again. You did the press
nice
and easily.
I mean, the press. By that point, the press was easy.
Yeah, the pistol squat.
Was,
and then you got the pull up on that occasion. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But it was interesting because I ended up kind of using. Again, this is something that I love about Strong First. There's so many protocols, there's so many kind of ways of building strength. And I actually ended up using a variant of the fighter pull-up program, but with weights rather than volumes. And working, sort of having a ladder going on. So I basically built up the pull-up. And it worked. And that was, so for me, the part of the experience was actually achieving the Iron Maiden rank, but also the thing I really enjoyed about it was the opportunity to give a system a go. And that's one of the things I actually really like about, because at the moment I'm doing my own programming and doing my own training, is I'm literally Lexing at the moment. I've got the SFL manual, and one of the things you get in the back is just tons and tons of protocols for strength building. And it's just, pick one, give it a go, see what happens. And I've been discovering there's certain things, I've discovered I really like volume. I seem to respond better to volume than intensity. So interestingly, the last Tactical Strength Challenge that I went to. And I was actually surprised. I think I tried out an intensity builder for peaking from my 1 rep max for deadlifts, and it didn't actually get me to my lifetime max. But it was really cool because I got to try it. And that's
what is your lifetime max, Ali? Just to ask.
160.
Okay.
And that's 160 with belt, but that was under optimal conditions, as in I picked the right time of the month for a woman. I think I was only testing that day. I wandered along to the gym. I had enough warm-ups. I did everything. Yeah,
you were just focused on that deadlift. Yeah. Well, I mean, you got the last time we'll kind of start to wrap up. I mean, this is this is because is this still the first podcast you've ever done?
Yes.
I mean, this is incredible because we really could talk forever. It's been great talking to you. But the Tactical Strength Challenge that you just won, you still, well, if your lifetime best is 160, you deadlifted 155, didn't you? And that was, like you say, using kind of experimenting with a high intensity program that maybe you say didn't quite work for you, so you might try something different next time. What I love and what I've loved today is your pull-ups. You got 12 light pull-ups, and these pull-ups, if you're listening, you can find them on the YouTube. It's actually on the Unique Results YouTube, I think, because I have to upload them there. But you'll be able to, you can see the pull-ups. They are proper, full extension at the bottom, make contact with the throat at the top. They are perfect. And there's 12, because I know you see a lot of people saying, oh, I can do 15, 20 pull-ups, and then you watch them and they're not pull-ups like this. And what I've loved is when you said the first time you did it, you got 4, but prior to that, you could only do 1. Because I think a lot of people, and I'm sure I do it with people, you look at people who are further down the road than you, or who are, more accomplished than you, and you just kind of assume that, well, they've always just been able to do that. They're just different than me. They're just lucky, or they just, they're genetically gifted. But the fact that you've said, you got the 1, and then you got 4, and then this time you got 12, which is great. And then obviously the 20 kilo snatches, you got 107 reps with a 20 in 5 minutes, which is incredible. And I also love the fact, because I hadn't heard the story. I love the fact that you went for the Iron Maiden challenge and you didn't quite get it. And then you went back at another certification, and you made some adjustments, you trained, you tweaked things, and then you got it. So it's very much like recently we spoke to Chris Branch a few times, haven't we, Pete, with his 100-mile run, which is totally different again. But he went for the 100-mile, he didn't get it. He went away, he trained, he kind of learnt a lot of stuff, and he went back and he did it. So
you missed a bit because he went for a coffee and then accidentally signed up for it.
Yeah, but I love these stories. This kind of it's the hero's journey. This kind of, it's not easy. There's a whatever the 12 whatevers of Hercules. There's kind of like a process there that you've gone through, and a growth that you've gone through to get there. So I mean, how did you feel when you won the TSC, when you realized that you'd placed the highest in the world?
Genuinely surprised. I mean, I think some of it, I'm just genuinely surprised. I don't want to say it was entirely luck. I think a lot of it was because I've been doing this. I've been doing this for a while. I've been doing it. I mean, it's funny you say that. 155's not much different from 160. It's like when you've been strength training for a while, putting 5 kilos on is a big deal. So it's kind of a big difference.
Well, no, I know. I wasn't saying just to clarify that as well. I know, because my 1 rep max at the moment is 155, and I'm trying to get to 157.5.
Yeah,
so I know it's a big jump. But what I mean is, it wasn't a disastrous difference. Is what I'm saying.
Yes. No, I'm more saying that for the people listening in, thinking, "Oh, I've been struggling to put a few kilos on for the past 6 months." I was like, "Yeah, that's normal. Welcome to the club." But no, it was sort of. I was very surprised. I think the nicest. This is going to sound odd, but the nicest bit, as a few of the people who didn't come as highly as I think they were hoping to, made a post about how they're going to they're really enthusiastic to train now, and they're going to really come back more. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. I want, I almost want it to be trading places every time, and there to be a sort of real competition, and to see more and more people saying, right, okay, no, this time round, let's go. So that's kind of weirdly the thing I liked most about it was other people's reactions. And I know a couple of people, and I don't know whether they'll listen to this or not, but a couple of people were sort of thinking, right, I want it next time.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes.
Well, yeah, you spur each other on, don't you?
Yeah.
Like you said, you want to beat people who are at the peak of their prowess. You don't want, to win when, exactly. So you spur each other on to do better. So that's fantastic. That's great. Absolutely brilliant. And we should probably we'll mention quickly as well, former guest of the show, Becca Roberts, who recently won World's Strongest Woman. And it's her and Lucy Underdown, isn't it, Pete? We met them both, and they're both like always like at the Europeans, at the UKs, at the Worlds. They're always like first and second, and they're just kind of pushing each other to kind of keep getting better.
In Nottingham, that was when it went down to the last bag, wasn't it? The what do you call it? Where they took it over the bar?
The toss over the bar.
Yeah, it went down to the last bag. It like 3 days of competition down to the last weight. It was just, that was nuts.
When they went into the final for the World's Strongest, they were because I think they finished on joint points, but they had to have a count back as to who won the most events, and then Rebecca but Lucy finished on the same point. It's just neck and neck. But no, I think that's great, Ali. Like you say, it's you're gonna help push others, and others are gonna help push you. So no, it's incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, how have you enjoyed your first podcast?
Yeah, it's been really good. I mean, I was thinking we almost didn't touch. There's quite some of the things we didn't touch. But
you'll have to come back on again. You'll have to come back on.
If nothing else, because at the moment, I mean, one thing is it's starting out my career. There's a lot. It's kind of funny at the moment. I'm writing programming, and it's kind of technically this is the worst programming I'm going to write, because I'm going to learn so much in the next few years. So it'd be interesting seeing, reflecting myself on my journey next. You're talking about the hero's quest and the journey, reflecting on journeys again.
No, we'll definitely get you back on. Like I say, because I've got other notes and stuff down here, but we've obviously just been talking for over an hour, I think, an hour and 10, hour and 15, something like that. And it's been great. It's been really great. So we definitely speak to you again. Are you going to do the next TSC in May?
Of course.
Ah, good.
And
Brilliant.
anyone listening, you should now's about the right time to start training. If you want to start training for it.
If you want to beat Ali.
Well, the thing is, if you haven't got a pull up, now's probably a good time to start thinking about putting that into your programming. If you haven't really got a strong deadlift, now's a good time to start thinking about putting it into programming.
Do you know anyone who could help someone who hasn't got their one pull up, who could get a load? Do you know anyone who could help with that, Ali?
As a
someone who's done it themselves,
that would be me. Exactly. Thank you.
Nice lead. So that's very nicely sort of segged into Ali. If people want to follow you, want to watch what you're doing, want to find out more, and obviously once you start taking on clients and that sort of thing, what's the best way for people to kind of keep in touch with you and follow you and see what you're up to, and maybe reach out to you for help with training and things like that?
Yep. The best way at the moment is probably via Instagram. So that's ali.in.london. I'll probably set up another account when I've got clients to showcase and have a more professional shop front to it.
That's the best way.
That's the best way.
Brilliant. No, that's absolutely fantastic, and it's been so lovely talking to you. And I think it's great that, like you say, for certainly for women as well as men, but for to have a strong role model and strong coach, and someone like yourself who kind of, just found their way into strength, and obviously, and now have just done so many different things. I think you've got such a breadth of experience, and obviously you're going to soon have like a breadth of qualification as well. And highly recommend people give you a follow on Instagram. And if you do happen to do the Tactical Strength Challenge in May, do you know the date off the top of your head, Ali? Have they announced the date yet?
I don't think they have.
Start of May, I think. But we'll be hosting it in Chelmsford in Essex at Unique Results, and so Ali will be doing it obviously again. So yeah, you might get to meet Ali in person if you come along and do the TSC this year. But that's great. Pete, anything you'd like to say as we wrap up?
I was thinking about this as Ali was talking, and it's a normal journey, if that makes sense. This should be a normal journey with like everything you've experienced and everything you've talked about there. There's nothing like, I know you've done Iron Maiden and you've lifted a heavy deadlift and you've won the that shouldn't be an abnormal journey, because you haven't done anything like out of the ordinary. You've just decided what you're going to do and then done the things that get you to do it, which is how things work, right? We were talking about this before we started recording, weren't we? So it's like, it should be a normal journey. And it is an abnormal journey, but it shouldn't be in my head. And like, shouldn't be and all that sort of stuff isn't saying people should do it, people shouldn't do it. People can do what they want, but I just love the whole story behind it, because it just shows that it's accessible to everybody. So thank you. It's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. No, thank you so much, Ali. It has been lovely talking to you. And I didn't know, what we talk about and where we'd sort of dive down in deeper. And there's stuff obviously we've talked about that I had no prior knowledge of, and it's all been brand new for me. So thank you so much for spending time with us today, and I hope training goes really well. And I love your quote that I've written down. I'll be sharing that and referencing you can't feel ready, but you can be prepared, which I absolutely love. So I hope training goes well for TSC in May, and obviously your level 3, everything you finish that off and everything's great with that. And I'll see you in May at the Tactical Strength Challenge, which will be great. And we've mentioned him a couple of times in this podcast. Next week, Fabio Zonin, we've got on the podcast again, haven't we, Pete?
Yes,
we have. Yeah. So Fabio will be on with us next week, live from is it Vincenza or Italy? Yeah, so he'll be on with us next week, which will be great. So thank you, Ali. Thank you, Pete. Thank you to all of you. Please do share, like, subscribe, leave a review if you're watching or listening on a platform that allows you to do so. We are trying to increase our YouTube subscribers. So if you are on YouTube, please go to Health Oddity and give us a subscribe. And Pete is now doing some nice little shorts as well that he's learned how to do on the YouTube. So there's little shorts going out every week for the kind of the upcoming episode, which you can watch little 15-second snippets to whet your appetite for the upcoming episode. So yeah, do that. And it's the start of the year. It's January. We've kicked it off brilliantly here with Ali. And like I say, next week we'll be back with Fabio. So let's really try and nail 2024. And we're going to be with you every single week throughout 2024, helping you to, get strong, get healthy, get fit, get focused, all these kind of things. So just listen every week and share with your friends and see if you can encourage them to listen as well. And we will see you next week for episode 176 with Fabio Zonin. Until then, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.